Gather around, my friends. It's time for another interview on Growing Up Punk. All right, if you go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, and you were growing up in the Christian punk scene, as we've talked about a few times, you would remember a band that was never on Tooth and Nail, was maybe a little underappreciated, but a fantastic, influential band all the same. Today, Aaron interviews Rich and Travis of Sick of Change. But before we get to that, let's get all that social media stuff out of the way. Of course, you could follow the show on Instagram at Growing Up Punk. You can follow us on Twitter at Growing Punk Pod. You can follow myself on Instagram and Twitter at David Growing Up. And Aaron, the guy who you're about to hear do this interview, you can follow him on Instagram as well at Aaron Grew Up Punk. But without further ado, it's Rich and Travis chatting with Aaron. I said that wrong. It's Aaron chatting with Rich and Travis of Sick of Change.
Well, today we've got Travis and Rich from the amazing Sick of Change on the show. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
I'm Rich, and that's Travis.
Yeah. So I guess I should have said there's two people on this episode this time. So we got Travis, who was bass, is that correct? And Rich drums.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, if you're not aware of the band Sick of Change, then you are missing out. They were an amazing melodic skate punk band from the late 90s, early 2000s, and a band that I feel didn't get nearly the recognition that they deserved. And so I'm really excited to have you guys on and just kind of hear a bit of your story and what happened and what was. And so, yeah, let's just start by kind of talking about how you guys got into music, what the music scene was like. Where you guys are from Fontana, California?
That's actually where we just had some. We had a P.O. box. My dad used to have a P.O. box in Fontana, but when my brother and I started the band, we were living in Rialto, which is the next city over.
Oh, okay.
And then Travis is from Riverside.
Oh, okay, sweet. I'm just kind of going off of the liner notes, which is about 25 years old here. So
yeah,
but yeah,
well, I don't know, not quite 25.
Oh yeah, I guess that was on 2001. So
yeah,
whatever the math is on that, but
18.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, so what was that like growing up there, and what got you guys into music? And so if you just want to kind of one at a time to share about that, that'd be awesome.
Trav, you can go first.
Yeah, okay. Well, so right around that time, I mean, life was pretty it was pretty basic. It was, for me, it was just about hanging out with friends after school, skateboarding, and just kind of living the simple life. I had, before I had met, I don't know how fast I jumped and everything, but before I had met the guys in Sick of Change, I was actually in like an old school punk rock band, and we were just about, days in the garage, just putting together music, and we didn't even have any expectations of doing anything. We just were having fun with it. So I guess, I mean, that's into probably, the story of what they were up to. But for me, I was hanging with friends, being a little punk rocker skate kid.
Yeah. Hey, Travis, you remember the first time we met? You remember that?
I do remember it. I think I remember it. I kind of there's two times we met, but one of them was like a Slick Shoes show. Or are you talking about before that?
That the Slick Shoes show. What show was that?
Or maybe I ran into you guys. I had met you once before, and then I ran into you guys at a Slick Shoes show. I think that's how it went down. I think my first memory was we played a house party together in Rancho Cucamonga for one of Andrew's high school friends or something. That's what I thought maybe we met first. You know what? Yeah, that makes sense. Rich has always had the better memory, by the way.
That was a long time
ago. Yeah, I think that's what I remember on my end. But because I was trying to jog my memory, before doing, the interview, just to kind of try and see if I can remember as much as I could. But yeah, I think I remember, just thinking like, man, you guys, they were really good. They were really good old school punk rock. I really liked how tight you guys were, or we all did. And liking Travis's bass playing is what gets him into the band later on. But for me, I started playing drums at the age of 16, so it would have been junior year of high school. And I think I always liked music, and I think my early recollections were like the 80s and like U2 and the Police. And I've always like been, I guess I've always had my anchor as far as music has always just been just rock and roll music, period. Not so much just punk, but, and then as I got older, when I was in high school, I think I was a freshman and Dookie came out. Yeah. And, classic, gateway in. And that's just that's what really made me want to play music. It's like, I never really thought about doing it before that. And then that record came out and it changed everything for me. So, but yeah, that's just what got me started. And MXPX kind of at the same time as well, because I think Poconacha and Tukey came out the same year, 94, I think. So
yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's so cool about punk music, especially those two albums in particular. When you listen to them, there's not really anything complicated about them, and so I'm kind of in the same boat. When I heard those albums, it's fathomable to say, okay, like I understand that, I can play it. There's no crazy solos or
Yeah.
I mean, MXPX had some fast drumming, but it wasn't anything super technical, and so it was an easy way to kind of get into it.
And I think that's what probably really brings people in, is that kind of music. It's just a lot of attitude, simple songwriting, like you were saying, nothing crazy. But once Slick Shoes came around with like the technical side, I don't think my brother and I had really ever heard anything like that. But I think that's what we both gravitated towards.
Yeah.
Once we knew that, oh, that's possible. Like you can actually write like really cool leads and technical stuff. And I think punk got us in, but then once bands like that started coming into the forefront, that's where we realized like that's what we really liked. So
that was. I mean, I remember hearing Rusty for the first time, and same thing. I'd listened to like Green Day and MXPX before that, but that was a whole different ball game. I remember putting that on and just being so blown away and thinking that like this is what I wanted. I just didn't know what it was I wanted.
Exactly.
I heard it, and so good. So
it makes sense to me. Yeah.
Had you seen bands like that live? Like, what was the music scene like? Kind of, in high school when you guys started playing music?
You can go, Chad.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's funny because as you're talking about, Dookie, and you brought up Poconacha, I mean, it's so nostalgic because I started thinking about where I was at. And, I just, I was hanging out with, from the, my old school punk rock band. One of the guys I skateboarded with, his name was Tim Mendez, and he had a drum set in his garage. And so I remember one of the first times I went over to his house and he had a drum set, and I was like, what could he play? And then I asked him if he could play a punk rock, and he killed it. He was the first guy that I saw do the double kick on the bass, the really fast.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, dude. I was like, we have a drummer. I was
funny.
like, this is sick, one of us. And I was back then, I literally had a guitar, and it was one of those situations where somebody's like, well, we need a bass player. And then I was like, well, I'll just sell my guitar to get a bass, because we already had somebody else that had a guitar, So it's I literally played bass. The only reason I played bass is because we needed a bass player. So I raised my hand, I'm like, I'll do that part. So that time period, just fast, hard driving music was awesome, and that's what we all were listening to.
Yeah, it's funny how many bass players actually start out on guitar. So that's if you watch a lot of behind the music or anything. If you're learning about how bands form, it seems like that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another great thing I love about punk is, I've heard that so many times where it's like, oh, I just kind of picked up an instrument and kind of learned it just by jamming and playing. And again, you think of, say like metal, it's not like, oh, I just picked up a bass and started, shredding metal on it, right? Like those things
Yeah.
you kind of have to know what you're doing. So not saying you don't when you play punk, but I just love that about that, right? Just the rawness. It's like, you put on Pokin' At Ya, the album sounds pretty bad, but they kind of figured it out, knew what they were doing, and it still is a cool record, even though it isn't like amazing musicianship or whatever. But
right, because the songs were good and they were tight. That I remember actually thinking about Pokin' At Ya, like, yeah, this doesn't really sound that good, but these guys are really good. So I just kept listening to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, if they were sloppy, it would have been like listening to a Germs record or something.
Right. Do you guys remember kind of what it was or what band it was that you saw that kind of really piqued your interest, or a band that just stood out?
Oh man.
Did you guys get lots of tours coming through there, or what was the kind of landscape like there for that?
Yeah, it's kind of the greater Los Angeles area and Orange County area. So, there's a lot of stuff that comes through. I'm just trying to think. I think one of my favorite bands to go see around like 98, 99 was probably AFI.
Yeah, awesome.
And I think Strung Out as well.
Yeah, another good one.
So, but I don't, and that was all I was really into at that time. It was like punk or hardcore or whatever. It wasn't, I didn't listen to so much of like other music, but at that time, that's really the bands that when I went to go see them live, it was like, wow, these guys are really a lot of energy. It's tight. It sounds good, so.
Yeah. What was the dynamic like kind of in your home life with music? Like, were your family's into music? Did they care that, you guys were listening to, aggressive music, so to speak? And, or was that a thing, or was it just kind of just a part of family life?
Yeah. So, I guess I would say for me, my dad was always a huge music person. And it was always really funny too, because my dad was kind of tone deaf. So like he would like love music and sit in the living room with headphones on and sing. And my mom and I would totally bust up because he'd like not be on key, but he loved music so much. And he loved drums, and he like always listened to Phil Collins.
Yeah.
And like Air in the Night type of stuff. Like the drums coming in, it would be like so loud, and you could hear it in the headphones, like across the living room.
That's funny, Trav, because I was thinking of your dad, and I'm like, I can't picture that happening.
Yeah, no, he was huge, and he had like a huge record collection. So yeah, I definitely was brought up around, a dad. At least my dad really liked music. My mom was always listening to music and stuff. But my dad, I was like, yeah, right on.
For me, it's actually really weird because I didn't find out until I was probably in high school that my mom was a huge Beatles fan. But my mom and my dad, they just never listened to music while I was growing up.
Yeah.
The only way I found out about that stuff was, they would drop me off at my grandparents' house, and I had aunts and uncles that I think my aunt was probably like 9 or 10 years older than me. And then my uncles were probably like 14 or 15 years older. And this was at the time where I was probably like 5 or 6. So, they're in their late teens, early 20s or whatever. So I got exposed to whatever they were listening to.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of, like I said, I think I mentioned U2 and the Police, as a reference, and that a lot of that had to do with them. I think visually the first thing where it clicked was they copied the 1985 Live Aid performances. Remember they had that big concert?
Yeah.
And I remember my aunt always playing over and over. She would always play U2's Bad. They played Bad live there, and just Bono dancing with the girl at the end of the song, and it just like emotionally, like I heard music before that, audibly, but then to see things visibly, it really hit a nerve. And that's when music really started to creep into my life, and little by little, just being exposed by my aunts and my uncles, and then eventually being able to get cassettes of my own, and being raised in the church, I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music, like per se, like as far as, having my own collection. So
Yeah.
I listened to like the Ultra Boys and Undercover, Mad at the World, some of those like mid 80s, late 80s, like Orange County groups. So,
Yeah.
That's so interesting that Rich brings that up. That's actually really funny because I remembered my parents putting like limits on music that I could listen to as well. Mm-hmm. Like they wouldn't want, because if there was like a lot of cussing and stuff in music, like my parents would screen the music. I just think it's so funny because like I don't think, sometimes I feel like parents don't do that anymore, but maybe it's just because I'm not around a lot of parents. But
yeah, man, I'm in the same boat with that. That is like, I just get such a kick out of hearing that story. I'm glad I wasn't the only one.
Yeah,
and to our parents, they didn't have any context for what that stuff was. I remember back then just being so like frustrated with them, but to them, they had nothing to compare it to, right? They just
right.
And so, I mean, I still bug my parents all the time about just like, you tried to stop me, but now look what I like, and and then they saw, okay, it's not so bad. He's got a healthy outlet and he's using it for good or whatever. But so when did that change? Like when was it just you got to an age where your parents just didn't care anymore? They just couldn't control that part, and so you just kind of started listening to kind of whatever.
Well, I knew this was going to come up, so I was trying to think. Like, I believe I just started. Like, once I got a Walkman or a Discman, it's like just put the headphones on and just play whatever I wanted. So I think Dookie and Smash by The Offspring were the ones that I listened to, like hoping, mom doesn't, walk in the door, even though I have my headphones on.
Right.
I'm afraid she's gonna be like, what are you listening to? And I won't be able to lie and say like, oh, it's, it's something that she would approve of or whatever. But those are, and I think Pearl Jam's Verses was another one that I listened to. It was like those three, kind of like the 94, 95 year that's when it started for me. And then eventually, I mean, I don't even think they even really like paid attention, like once I got 16, 17, 18 or whatever. So, I mean, the stuff I wouldn't say like a lot of them had stickers on it, but if you're listening to punk, I mean, they're somewhere, but
right.
I just make sure I just didn't blast it,
Yeah.
If I ended up playing it, just on the stereo without earphones or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
oh man.
Yeah. Well, what about you, Trav?
Well, I just remember having conversations with my mom where I know she heard like, if I was listening to Green Day, she was like, they cuss a lot. And then I'd be like, look, just because they cuss doesn't mean I'm going to cuss. But, I mean, I think as you grow, in that age of being teenagers, we're just like every other teenager that, you just start listening to whatever you can get your hands on that you think is awesome. You don't really care about that. And, eventually, you realize that, you really don't cuss or you don't turn into a terrible person because you listen to, the Implicit Lyric, album.
Yeah, it's true.
When I got Rusty from Slick Shoes, I was still young enough that I guess my mom asked to look through the lyrics or whatever, and I can't remember which song it was, but there's a line that says, "A girl is a wall that no one can climb." And I remember her sitting me down and asking me what I thought that meant, and I was like, "I don't know, Mom. Like, just let me listen." It's just so funny and awkward, and I'm like, this is, it could be so much worse. Like, you don't need to worry about this band or whatever. But
I wonder if 15-year-old Ryan actually penned that, or if one of the other guys actually.
Yeah, maybe like his mom asked him what that meant too. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. You want to know what's funny? What's a lot of people don't know is we kind of have a connection with Slick Shoes in a way that is kind of funny. my brother actually, after Jackson left the band, he played a local show at them, and then he played at Cornerstone Festival with them.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So, and I think he was only 16, not even 17 yet. But like, that's what, I mean, it was easy for him because he just learned all the songs. Like he could play by ear and just figured it out. And he was already playing those songs already. And they'd asked like around, and he was like, oh, I can do it. So,
And Jeremiah, like, was your guys' original bass player, or what's the story behind that?
Oh, no, he wasn't. But if you remember, Rufio, right?
Oh, yeah.
The band Rufio?
Yeah.
So John Barry, he played on our first record.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why Travis ended up in the band is we recorded that record. The first record's called In Our Time of Need.
Yeah.
And it was time to tour. And I think it just turned into like 2000. I think we were going 99 into the year 2000. And John was in school, and he was like, well, I'm in school, guys. I don't, So we're like, oh, well, we really, something we kind of need to do. So at first we were going to have, because we're going on tour Noggin Toboggan. Remember Noggin Toboggan?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they're on the same label. And what's funny is their drummer had just quit. So I was going to play drums for them on the tour. So I was going to play drums for our band and their band. And then Jeremy Wells, who plays in Noggin Toboggan, he plays bass. He was going to help us out and play bass for our band. But after, I think they came down for a weekend, and he just didn't feel comfortable. And he was like, you guys might want to call somebody, ask around, see if somebody else might want to like help you out on this tour. And then, that's when I think first thing me and my brother thought, I was like, well, let's call Travis. But we were kind of apprehensive because he was already in a band.
Oh, okay.
So we almost didn't want to like kind of make waves, I guess, to step on toes. But we eventually just ended up calling him and asking him to, I guess, just like fill in. And then eventually, after we were done with the tour, we just had such a great chemistry, and he was such an easy person to get along with, and he played great, and he just already kind of felt like he was already in the band. And then John ended up wanting to stay in school. So Travis just ended up staying on the band, and the rest is history, I guess.
Yeah.
Then there was like a really interesting split that basically happened. So I was playing in this old school band, Morally Accused, and one of the guys in the band, his name was CJ Alderson.
Oh, yeah.
And CJ Alderson actually was starting to get into hardcore. And Morally Accused, this old school band, was like kind of like a really rough punk old school band. Like we did some screaming, and it was kind of like this fast, but then screaming, and like, anyways, it was interesting and it was really fun. But like he started getting into hardcore music, and then we were like, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to play hardcore, but like he like really loved it and was great at it. And then he met some guys in like this hardcore scene. It was with Face Down Records, and they played with like No Innocent Victim and like all these other hardcore bands. And I was like, what am I going to do? Like, is this band going to keep going? And then that's kind of like it set until that's like somewhere right around when he started doing some hardcore stuff. I met the guys, or I had known the guys from Sick of Change, and they came to a show one night. And I remember it was they stood right in front of me when I was playing on stage. And I remember being really nervous because I'm like, dude, the guys from Sick of Change here, and they're like right in front of me. So like they're watching me play, but they were my friends too because I had already played shows with them. We already hung out, but then then after the show they approached me and they're like, hey, we have this show up north, and we need a fill-in bass player. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I went my way. And CJ ended up in a band called Cyanide Beach. They ended up getting signed. They signed with Victory at one point. So,
yeah, I think so.
They signed with Face Down.
Yeah.
They ended up signing with Victory. So it's crazy. Like, so that band split, and he went off that way. I went my way, and then John went off to Rufio. So it's like,
it was crazy.
Yeah, kind of a big split, and we all stayed in music. But it was,
I totally forgot that was all going down on your end too. That the whole Morally Accused basically just kind of being on the way out too.
Yeah,
Totally forgot about that.
Yeah, and guitar player Logan Lambert was actually in the band before that. We had an old school punk rock band called Split Second, and Logan was in that band with us. So this is stuff nobody knows. So I thought I'd throw it out there for like a podcast because it was awesome. There's like really old pictures my mom has in a photo album, and it's like me and the guys from Sinai Beach in our band called Split Second, and yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I love all that history and just things that nobody would know otherwise. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So kind of going like maybe back a bit, like just timeline wise, like so before In Our Time of Need came out, what was kind of going on with the band? How did you guys get signed and put out that album? And you guys just kind of talk a bit about that and the touring that happened after that.
So we formed in, I guess it would be the spring of '98, and it was me, my brother Andrew, playing guitar, and I was playing drums, and then we had a friend of ours. His name was Jake Klein, and he played bass. And Andrew knew him from church, and we would just kind of mess around. We actually even messed around a little bit before that, probably like late '96 into '97. And I think until we heard Slick Shoes, we never really, I don't know. It's like we couldn't really find our niche. But then once that record came out, we all were like, oh wow, this is like, we should do something like this. Yeah. And that's where it kind of clicked. And the only reason why it waited till '98 was I started school in late fall of '97. I went to Cal Baptist University. It's in Riverside, and I was just kind of appeasing the parents and just trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do? So I'm just going to go to school. And that was like one of the most miserable times of my life, was going to school, like hating it. I don't want to be here. I just want to be playing music. Yeah. And then working, a night shift at UPS. It's a shipping company here in America. They probably, actually they do international. Okay. Yeah. They do. I forgot they do international, but, and just thinking like, man, I just don't want to be doing this. I'd rather be playing music. And I finally was just like, this is what I'm going to do. I was actually even going to drop like halfway through the year. My mom said, yeah, I just finished, because what if you go back? At least you'll have the year done. I'm like, okay. It was tough to finish, but I did. And then we started, it was like May '98. We had a few songs. We knew the Slick Shoes guys because we kept going to shows and talking with them. And it gets to 2 months later in July, and we went to go see them play in Redlands at a church we used to go to. And I remember Jackson talking about a show that they were going to play the next week, and the promoter is like, I don't have an opening band. You guys know opening band. And then I vividly remember him just looking over at us saying, hey, you guys got a band. You guys want to play next week?
Oh, awesome.
And then that's where it really took off, because there's a lot of people at the show. It was outside at a park in Covina Park, actually. And it was funny. I remember I used to have that thing on VHS, and I think I saw CJ in there. Did you go to that show, Trav?
I think I did.
Yeah. Okay. Because I remember looking back and seeing like how many people we ended up knowing, either at that point or at some later point, just realizing like, whoa, all these people were already there, and they saw us. So yeah, we played. So it was me, Andrew, and Jake. We played, and then the promoter wanted us back for the next week. So the next week it was with the Dingies.
Oh, nice.
And so the more shows we played, the more connections we started making. And eventually we ended up on a show. I can't remember if it was like December '98 or January '99, but we ended up on a show with Fan Mail.
Oh, yeah.
It was a militia group show, because Chad Pearson, before Militia Group was a record label, it was a management company for bands, and he would book shows for like Dogwood, Slick Shoes, Dingies. There's probably some other one. Maybe Noise Ratchet might have been one.
Oh yeah.
We were good friends with those guys too. At one point, we toured a lot, or we played a lot together. And then, but I remember Scott Soletta. I mean, I was actually a Plank Eye fan as well, and he came up to us. I can't remember if it was during the show or after the show. He said, "Hey, I really like your band. I think I can help you guys out a bit. You guys want to record a demo or something?" That's awesome. I'm like, this is, I don't know if he really means this or not, but I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, here's my number. And literally like a few days later, he called and said, I have studio time in like a week or two. So if you guys want to come down, you know, to Orange County, to Huntington Beach and record at the Green Room, you know, you guys are more than welcome. It's like, oh man, we got to do this. So we recorded the demo. I think we did 5 songs. It was to analog. The only time we did analog as a band is a demo. It's not even a record. And so we did that. It turned out really good. Sent that off to a bunch of record labels. I think we probably got a couple letters back from really, really small labels. And I think we only sent it to ones that were in the Christian market.
Okay.
I might have sent a couple to secular, like maybe Vagrant or maybe even Lady Luck, which was, I think, Trevor Keith's imprint. He's in Face to Face. Yeah. I remember he emailed me saying like, I like your demo, but I just don't have, you know, I can't really do anything with it.
Yeah.
I'll pass it on sort of deal. But we eventually got a phone call from Betty Rocket Records, which is the company that we ended up signing with. I think the main reason why they just felt real. I mean, they were a pretty small label, and they didn't have a lot of money. But what we did realize is they had passion.
Yeah.
And literally, the contract that we signed was like a 1-page contract. And it was like basically just in black and white, and we didn't see anything, you know, sly about it. We didn't, you know, it was just honest. It was just honest contract, and we really liked the husband and wife that were running it. So we just ended up signing with them, and then we ended up recording in July of '99, and then it eventually came out in November. So. And that record we recorded with Andy Ernst, to record the first 2 Green Day records.
Oh wow!
And he also did the first, I think, 3 or 4 AFI records.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, we went up to the Bay Area to record that. So that was a lot of fun.
Was there any talk of trying to get on Tooth and Nail, just with your connection with Slick Shoes? And
so yeah, that's kind of a funny thing. So I was telling you how Andrew played at Cornerstone Festival,
right,
in '99. So that would have been the first week of July. Then Scott was there, Fan Mail was there. They ended up playing as well. Now we weren't playing at all. It was just Andrew playing with Slick Shoes, but Scott kept, talking to Brandon like, hey, these, you know, I recorded these guys and their guitar player's playing, you know, with Slick Shoes today. So he caught the show, and after catching the show, and I guess he listened to whatever the demo we did, he was interested in signing us. But it didn't even really phase us. Cause one, we're like, well, we're people of our word, and we made an agreement already. I think we had signed that contract probably 2 or 3 weeks prior to that.
Yeah. So
we already done the deal. I mean, that's great and everything, but we just stuck to our guns. We just, you know, our word is our word, and we stuck with it. So as flattering as it was, and how sort of enticing as it was just to think about it, you know, we just decided to stick where we were. So.
Yeah. And I'm sure Philip at Betty Rocket, you know, was obviously aware of those interactions, and I'm sure he, you know, was glad you guys stuck with them, and you know, even though maybe you would have got more exposure on Tooth and Nail or whatever, but yeah, it's. Did you guys ever have any of those kind of like what if moments of, you know, especially with these Shattered Lives? I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but you know, like that album especially, like, I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of, you know, maybe it was bigger than I thought, but I mean, I don't remember seeing it as much, you know, whether it was promotion or advertising or whatever, as much as the Tooth and Nail albums. And I was always just like, man, like these guys need more attention. And so was there moments where you kind of like, you know, kind of had hoped for more, or was it just what it was?
I think as I got older, I looked back, me personally, and probably thought, you know, what if? But he was always trying to license his bands because he had a connection at Warner Brothers.
Okay.
So there was always a chance that, you know, you might be able to break through and get a licensing deal and get more exposure. But what do you think, Trav? Like, do you have any what ifs?
I mean, after, well, I guess that's a tricky one. So, okay, so let me just explain my side, and I think it'll answer that question. So when I was playing with the old school punk rock band, and we were playing shows with Sick of Change. So you got to remember, at this point, like John Barry was actually playing for Sick of Change, and we were playing a lot of shows with these guys. So yeah, so what happened was, like, I really kind of admired them, and I just thought, hey, they're really good, and I really like this band, and never thought that I'd really get approached to even play for them. So when they got signed, I was kind of like jealous in a way. I was like, wow, they're like the first band out of all the bands that we're playing with that like got an actual record deal, where they were going in for studio and coming out with an album, like a full album with like artwork and everything that they didn't make, like, on their own. We were like still making our own type of recording. So
you guys are real punk rock.
Exactly. So anyhow, yeah, I mean, so for me, like when I got to that point, I got to go into the band. Like, I didn't really care what record label they were with. Now, in hindsight, what band doesn't want more, marketing and advertising? And we did admire, or at least I really admired a lot of the bands on Tooth and Nail at the time. That would have been awesome. But I was really thankful, just from my standpoint, to be like joining the band.
Yeah.
So that answers it.
That's a great answer. I like that answer.
Yeah. So when In Our Time of Need came out, like, were you guys like hoping to pursue the band full time, like on the road, most of the year, or what was your guys' aspirations with that record?
Yeah, we wanted to play as much as possible, and just that's all we thought about. That's all we did. So that came out in November '99. We went on tour February and March of 2000. So all we were really, really thinking about was that first tour, like, oh, we're going on tour. And then, and I wish in hindsight that I probably would have pushed a little bit more to get on other tours and probably to be a little bit more busy, but we kind of played like every weekend. If we weren't on the road in some part of the country, I mean, we were, we're playing like Northern California, Central California, like Southern California on a weekend. We'd just do like a weekend trip and just kind of go, anywhere in the state. But, so we did that tour in Ogden Toboggan. And then probably a couple weeks after we got home, this would have been like, I don't know, like early April, Josh from Dogwood calls me, because I think we'd played once or twice with them. I don't know if it was around when our record came out, or before or after, I can't remember, but he wanted us to go on tour. So then we went, and that would have been May. So literally on tour February, March, and then go back on the road in May for like 3 weeks or whatever. You remember that, Trav?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that was a fun time. But I remember just thinking, like, dude, we're going on tour, the Tooth and Nail band, and it was just cool. More of the Conquerors had already come out, and then I remember they had just recorded "Building a Better Me," and we got to hear it. So they had
nice.
they had the whole CD, and like they let us like borrow it and listen to it on our van. And
awesome.
I remember thinking, like, man, this record's really good.
So what were those tours like back then? Was it, what you thought it was going to be, or was it still, kind of just smaller shows and just hustling? And because in my mind, like as a teenager, seeing, there was you guys or bands like Dogwood, in magazines, and I just assumed any band that was on a label or that had promotion was like a huge band. And then, as I got older and got in a band myself, and, you realize, okay, like, just because you're signed doesn't really mean anybody cares. Like, you're getting more exposure, but it's not like you instantly have, amazing tours being lined up and whatever.
Yeah. What do you think, Trev?
Well, yeah, he's right. you don't like, you don't have amazing tours like lined up, and you're not going to be playing sold out shows, because like now is like the reality of the grind sets in.
Yeah.
And we all felt that, I think, but it can be a little bit inconsistent out there in those times, because we can show up to one city and there's just like all these kids that are super pumped to go see Dogwood, and maybe they didn't even know us, or maybe vice versa. But then like this show's like packed out and it's like amazing. And then you'll go to the next city and another night, and then there's like 15 people standing in the front aisle.
Right.
For sure.
And you're like, oh, so tonight is going to be fun.
Yeah, that's true. I think after going on that first tour, we realized like, oh, and I don't think I really expect anything crazy, because I mean, we're on a small label. Both of our bands were on the same label. It was a small label. Our records had just come out. But yeah, I think I personally realized early on that it wasn't going to be easy and it was going to be a grind, but we were all okay with that.
Yeah.
We just wanted to play. We just wanted to see the country and play. That's all we wanted to do. And when you have a goal, or if you have a desire to do something, like, you just do it. So
yeah, and it was always super fun. It was just so fun. All I remember was like, I didn't care if it was a sold out show or there was the 15 people. Like, we just always went off as hard as we could and played.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, like as hard as we'd be dripping in sweat, and we didn't care if anybody was there or not.
Yeah,
it's true. It's true. Yeah, that's how I felt about it. Yeah, we just went out there and played. I don't think there was ever a time we mailed it in. At least that I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a path that you have to be passionate about, because if you're just basing it off how you feel that night, or the vibe from the crowd, whether it's there or not, like, right, you want to be playing music, that's what you got to do to get out there and do it. So
it's true. Yeah. Used to it.
Did that touring kind of ever change, or was it more or less like that the whole time you guys were a band, or it was just kind of up and down? And what were maybe some standout like shows or tours?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it changed. Travis said he thinks it changed. I thought it did too. It seemed like things, especially when the second record came out, because we knew it was good, and I think people were realizing it was good, and I think people started to show up a little bit more, I think.
Mm. Yeah, what was the process kind of? So, the tour cycle ends from In Our Time of Need, and you guys had just been writing on the road kind of thing, or how did that kind of transpire going into that second record?
What are you laughing about, Travis?
I'm laughing because the turnaround on it was like 0 time.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I think we had All You Are was a new song, and I think we played it on the Dogwood tour, I think.
Yeah.
And then eventually we got Thoughts That Defile. But what I remember is we had scheduled some time to go in like early December of 2000 to go record that record. And I remember it gets to November, and like, I wrote the lyrics, like half the lyrics, and Kevin usually wrote the other half, and then Andrew would probably write a little bit of lyrics for some other songs, but none of us really wrote music. I know I didn't. Trav, did you ever like have ideas? Or
well, like Andrew and I, like Andrew he'd come up with a lot of the main, guitar riffs and stuff. And obviously when you go into these Shattered Lives, like it's super guitar riffed, like heaven, it's like over the place. But so he would just come in and kind of show me the guitar, and then we would write the bass and guitar to kind of match up for the most part. But then you guys would be doing some of this side, and Andrew and I would be like, okay, we're just going to be over here polishing this off. But,
I distinctly remember, because I couldn't remember like your guys' process, but I do remember that I think all we had was those 2 songs going into November.
Yeah.
Like as far as completed songs. And I think we had Endless Thoughts of You was an old song that we didn't put on the first record, but we ended up just putting it on the second one. So I guess that's 3 songs. But I just remember Andrew just like in the clutch, and that month before we went in, and him and him working with Travis, I guess, and just knocking all that out in like a 3 or 4 week period.
Wow.
Yeah, I think Andrew like locked himself in a room to come up with a lot of this stuff, and then, I couldn't even take credit for like as much work that Andrew did in those times, and then I just came in just to help, really.
Yeah,
that's the honest truth.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, and like you were saying, it's just so good guitar driven. There's just a lot of technical stuff. I remember I liked everything, and I think the guitar lead for These Shattered Lives, like when I heard that, I was like, man, that's like new territory for him. It sounded like we're going like, we're already going a different direction, like a more elaborate direction, and it almost felt like a gateway to the next record. As far as like how his guitar playing was changing, and just like how hooky it was, like really hooky.
Yeah.
Like his leads are just, I don't know where he comes up with this stuff, but yeah, I just remember hearing that and be like, dang.
Yeah.
Like when we lay this stuff down, like I can't wait to hear it, you know?
Yeah, it's such a good album. Like when I put it on now, you know, even after 18 years, like it's just, I don't know, it's so good. All the songs stand out and, you know, onto their own. And what was, Rich, what was that like recording drums on that album? Because the drums are crazy fast on there.
Oh man.
Like was that to a click track and just...
No, I never used a click track. I probably should have.
So it wasn't even like edited to a click track? It was just, that's just how it was?
No, it was just live.
Wow.
So we mapped out like what instrumentation we were going to do. I think, so we mapped it out where the first 2 days were going to be me. And I think the third day, or maybe even the fourth day, was going to be Travis. And then, so we always did bass, drums, and then guitar, and then vocals.
Oh, interesting.
And then there'd be guitar, but the record company was going to pay for a certain amount of days. Like, I think they gave us a certain amount of days. It was like I don't even know what it was, but we ended up paying for the other half because we knew we needed more time. So we went out of pocket on like half the record. But, but I remember the first day being like, or the night before, I just remember sleeping like crap. Like I was too anxious. I was too like nervous, excited, all those things. And I think I probably kept one track from that first day. So I basically banged out the rest of them in the second day. But
wow.
The only track I remember keeping from that first day was "Feels Like Eternity," and I think that probably to me feels like my tightest drumming on the record is probably that song. But yeah, everything else I had to get it done the second day because I was just hating everything the first day, and I just didn't sleep well, so I just wasn't all there or whatever. But but it was fun. Once I got all my stuff out of the way, I was like, okay, you guys go ahead and take it home, you know?
Yeah.
So,
one thing that really stands out to me on this album is the lyrics. I always thought you guys kind of touched on, you know, subjects that a lot of other punk bands, you know, weren't singing about then, whether it was, you know, abortion or pornography or, you know, some of those subjects. What was, I don't know if either of you guys wrote any of the lyrics on that album, but I would love to hear some kind of insight on what your thoughts were going into that record, kind of what you wanted to say lyrically on there.
I think if you listen to the first record, it seems like it's a lot about just like your one's walk, you know, in their faith, like walking with God or walking with Jesus or whatever. But I think for me, the second record, I think it tackles like issues of like lust and abortion and like brokenheartedness. And there is some introspectful like walk with God stuff on that second record, but I think we did tackle more issues. I wrote, the one that comes to my mind is the first track, which is Thoughts to Defile, and it is about lust and just me struggling with that.
Yeah. And
I know everybody struggles. I mean, if you're a human being, you know, you struggle with some aspect of it.
Right.
So that's one that really jumps out to me lyrically. And I know Kevin wrote the one called Holding Poison. It's about abortion, which is actually, now that I read the lyrics now, it's like, wow, that was really like in your face. And I don't know if we played these days, I don't know if we would play that song, but I don't, you know, while it's something that I personally believe in, I'm pro-life, it's still like really in your face, and I don't know if we would play it these days. But
did you guys ever get backlash on your lyrics?
I think, Trav, do you remember the time we played at Bend, Oregon? I think we're on tour with Dogwood. I think somebody mentioned something from the crowd about it. We played that abortion song. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Actually, I do remember a couple nights where people definitely said some things to the show. But in that time, like, for whatever reason, like, that just time, and we just wanted to be bold and just, you know, I mean, I didn't write any of the lyrics, but I loved supporting, I don't know, just being, it's exactly like Rich said. We may not even play that song if we played it right now, but we were really young and we were just like being bold. We were just getting out there, and we wanted to stand for something more. And it seemed a lot, you know what it seemed like to me in our realm, a lot of, maybe this is a great thing to say on the podcast, but or maybe it's not.
Just say
it seemed like a lot of bands were tiptoeing around being a Christian band. It was like, you know, I don't know. Maybe I want to be a secular band, and maybe I want to like go off and do this, and I want to sign a big record label over here, and you know that always came up. It was always like, well, what do you guys are like really Christian, aren't you? And I was like, well, we just have. We're Christian. Is that a bad thing? And then it was like, we want to be bold and we want to make a difference. And yeah, maybe we're young. Maybe we said some things too that we would definitely word them different now. But we were just trying to be proud of being a Christian and saying like we don't want to stand for things that are, you know, we feel are wrong, and we want things, you know, to be good. And, you know, we had the right heart. We just delivered it.
Yeah, execution might have been a little
harshly,
but I don't think we heard so much backlash, because I think most of our gigs were in the Christian market. We would occasionally play in a general market show.
That's true.
But I think that's probably why it didn't come up so much. And I think
that's fair.
I think also being the early 2000s, like at that time, I don't think it was so. It's like nowadays there's definitely backlash for even remotely being like conservative or right wing, especially here in America. But back then, I don't know. I just don't think it was that much. But there's a lot more people nowadays that don't see things that way. So yeah, these days it would be definitely different.
Yeah, you know what else is really interesting, and I've talked to my wife about this before, but it's like, it's almost kind of sad that we weren't really around when social media was booming, because like we would have a lot of stuff like hashtagged and saved in Instagram, and like these, like we'd have short clips and videos like all over the web, and I mean, I could bet you we'd have tons of backlash, because people on the internet, you know, they don't have a face. They can just, you know, attack a band and say whatever they want. But we didn't really have to deal with any of that. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, I remember the first time I heard you guys was this album, actually, and it was the song Thoughts Defile. And it just instantly just caught my attention. And it's just such a great opening song on the album. And I mean, the whole album is just fast and melodic and super catchy. And and I love that it had, you know, the lyrical content that it did. And, you know, I remember being, you know, challenged by it and kind of thinking like, man, like these guys, they got something to say. I want to read these liner notes and, you know, try to figure it out what it is what they're trying to say. So I thought that was really a cool thing for you guys to do. So good for you guys.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned before about like what the next record was going to be. So maybe what kind of happened after these Shattered Lives?
It was. I think we were getting tighter as a band. I think, and we were playing more. We wanted to kind of like play not so many probably Christian industry shows, and we just wanted to branch out and see if maybe we could cross over. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of burnout, and I think there's probably like chemistry wise, like, I mean, personally, I don't think we were in a good spot as far as, at least now looking back at it, there was, the last tour we did, which would have been like July, August of 2001 on that touring cycle. I felt like we were just getting burned out. And then I got, I got in a fight with Kevin. I can't even remember what it was for, but I personally feel like that night that the fight happened, like it wasn't like physical or anything. It was just all verbal.
Yeah.
But it just felt like after that point, like it just kind of was dying. And I think, and you know, when we fast forward to like January, and my brother, I could just tell that he's not really into it. And he mentions it at a practice and says, like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore or even play this kind of music anymore or whatever. I can't remember exactly verbatim what he said, but he was like, well, I think we had a show scheduled for that month, and which would actually end up being our last show. He's like, let's do the show, and I don't know, I'll just figure it out. It's like, if we're going to keep doing this. And that just ended up being it. Like, we never really got around to, I guess, we never got around to keep it going.
Yeah.
He just wasn't into it anymore. What do you remember, Trav?
Well, I was gonna ask you, Rich. I kind of feel like we were growing old, but really early.
Yeah.
It was I don't know if I want to, drive around in a van forever and like be a musician. And, like, our music sort of like, we were not as punk rock. We were like coming up with some, like, it was like leaning towards rock and some sort of pop.
Yeah.
Some, like, Rich was listening to YouTube like every single day in the van.
Dude, they were back. They were back. Sorry.
And like, we were like, our music was maturing like really fast, almost like too fast, to where it was like, yeah, we want to make different music. And then that's kind of bad for a punk rock band, if you can imagine,
Yeah. We worked on it with some new stuff that was actually pretty sweet. I really liked it. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. We had like started writing side songs that weren't even punk rock, man. It was like Coldplay met Keen.
Yeah.
We thought it was awesome, but it wouldn't have survived on the label, and it wouldn't have been like it wouldn't have been what everybody wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah. After we stopped playing Sick of Change, me, Andrew, and Travis, we started jamming on our own and doing something different. Yeah. That's what Travis was talking about. Yeah. And I think we actually recorded something in the living room. Yeah.
That was right afterwards. But so it kind of, I went in out of order there. But yeah, definitely like started coming in.
Yeah.
What we like, our taste.
Did you guys do a final show, or was it just kind of fizzled out and figured that was it?
Yeah.
We did a.
Yeah, we just did that last show. Yeah, that one that he was like, well, we'll do the show and then figure it out, and that was it. That was the show.
Wasn't that the Glass House show in Pomona?
Yeah, it was. And the last show we played was with a Canadian band, 1,000 Foot Crutch.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
No, it was good. They actually were like, oh man, you guys are breaking up. You guys are good. And we're like, well, you guys are great too. And it was a good show. But it was sad. I don't know. Just I think people had always approached us after we broke up, like, you guys need to get back together and at least play like a reunion show or something. And I don't know. Why did we never do that?
I don't know, man. Like, I think it's just trying to get on the same page. A lot of times, like, I've always said this about being in a band. It's like being in, 4 different relationships and matching everything. It's hard enough to be in one relationship, right? So, like, imagine trying to get everybody all on the same page and feeling like you go thing. I don't know. I just don't feel like it ever came together. But it wasn't like anybody was ever really against it. It just didn't, getting it to line up.
Yeah,
didn't really work.
And I think the further we got out from it, I think me, you, and Kevin were like, we're either neutral or like for it. I think the further we got out, Andrew was like, I don't know. Like, nobody's going to show up. It's been, it's been like 15 years or something, or 10 years. And my thing was always like, people will show up. It might not be 1,000 people, but at least maybe there'll be a couple hundred people, and maybe I always thought like, well, we could play with, another band that, Slick Shoes was always still playing. So maybe we jump on, but I don't know. It just never happened. We never all really like even like talked about any of that stuff. It was just like, well, we're just not playing anymore. I don't know.
Yeah. We also ended up, far away from each other too. Like I went off traveling in Europe, and I don't know, like the boys, ended up doing their thing. I mean, I can't even remember at that point, Rich. And then but I know, Andrew went his way, you went your way, Kevin ended up in Riverside, which is interesting because that's where I grew up.
Yeah, it's true.
But I ended up in San Diego and stuff for a while. So we were spread out.
Yeah. And I ended up in Orange County for a bit. And now I'm up here in Central Coast, California. Now Travis is in Portland.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just
so
there
it's not
this
just
summer.
a weekend thing.
Yeah.
Well, that seems pretty common once, one guy in the band kind of seems to be done, that it's too hard to kind of make things happen. And sometimes it's not worth it. Sometimes it is. It just, but, I guess sometimes it just is what it is. So.
And you can't replace that guy because he's one of a kind.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, guys, I feel like I got all sorts of other questions. Maybe we can leave that for a follow-up episode. I would love to kind of hear maybe each of your, top 3 punk records to kind of wrap this up. And, whether it was albums that, first
I knew you were going to ask that
or,
question.
Yeah.
I have mine, but no. Travis, if you don't have yours, it's okay.
I mean, honestly, like I've even thought about that, and I don't even think I could put something. I couldn't even put 3 out there and really be like, say it was legit. I was just listening to everything. Everything I could get my hands on it was good. I would actually listen to like an old school band like Officer Negative, which was like an old school Christian punk rock band. And the next day I'd be listening to like Jimmy Eat World, Clarity. And then I'd be listening to like Dr. Dre the next day.
Yeah.
It's true. Trav's multi.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I guess it doesn't have to necessarily be top 3 punk, but just anything that kind of influenced you guys. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. How about for you, Rich?
I mean, I already had answers. It was good to just be for like punk albums. Go for it. So obviously, Dookie is a huge one. So it would be Dookie. It would be Twisted by Design by Strung Out.
Oh, so good.
And the third one was kind of tough but I think I'll probably just put Saves the Day Through Being Cool as number 3.
Yeah, man.
I really like their Stay What You Are record, but that's more of like a kind of like a rock emo record.
Right.
It's not really very punk except for maybe the last track, but
Yeah, it's one of those bands that influenced a lot of punk bands. So in that regards, I still kind of classify them as a punk band, even though they haven't been for many years. But that's kind of what people first got into them.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks so much for doing this. Like, seriously, made my day. You were on my list of bands that I would have loved. That I really wanted to talk to and kind of hear more backstory. And I know there's others that want to hear that too. So I'm excited to get this out there and for people to kind of get to hear more about either the band that they missed out on or a band that they loved or a band they can go back and listen to. So
it's on all the streamings, guys.
Yeah, awesome.
Both records. I just need to apologize to Travis. I feel like I talked way more than you did.
Nah. I'm really thankful for the experience and just, I wanted to express my gratitude. It is nice, even though it is like 15 years later. It's nice. And we did all love each other in Sick of Change, and we had a really good time. And tours were awesome, and it was still to this day, one of the best experiences that I've ever had in my life, and it's a big part of like, who I am today. So
it's pretty awesome. Yeah, I want to thank you as well. One of the things I like to do is listen to podcasts, and I hear people tell their stories, and I'm like, oh man, I almost want to email this podcast so that we could tell our story. But I mean, I just never, but it's cool that you reached out to us, to ask us questions. And cause I mean, there really is nothing else out there from us, other than records.
I don't even think we have a Wikipedia. So
no, we don't. So it's the biggest band without a Wikipedia you ever heard of. No, I'm just kidding.